Okay, so now we're back to normal. Okay, well, thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone who has been waiting for us on the internet to join the Dutchess Quarry Cave meeting. We got a late start because of an internet problem. So right now we are discussing the survey responses from our historian, Johanna Poor. And right now, Mr. Johnson is speaking about stone features that are present on site that we seen last spring. Dr. Johnson?
So these stone features are very significant out there. And also different small but significant quarry sites have been documented up there where Native Americans were looking for church. So there's multiple issues there that really haven't been a good solid survey of the archaeology up there in recent years has not been conducted with new knowledge available.
Okay.
So I would be willing to do that with some of my team members who are all members of our chapter.
Okay.
So you've got confidentiality in that, and members of our chapter. And we would be willing to do that. Right now, we're involved in several major sites on this.
Great. Well, I think that would be part of a discussion for myself, the chairwoman of the legislature and the county executive. And I would think that if we were to do this, we would want to get going before what particular date? Because we know vegetation is going to start growing now.
The buds are coming out.
Yeah.
And that's why we're running real fast with sites.
By April?
All right.
I mean, end of April?
My schedule is as such. We have the conference, the New York State Archaeology Conference, if anybody's interested, is in Crown Plaza in Suffern. So it's very near, within an hour, April 21 through 23. The main portion of it with presentations from archaeologists around the state is on Saturday and Sunday morning. And this can be accessed by the Incorporated Orange County chapter of the New York State Archaeology Association. If you go into that site, you can see the agenda and schedule everything and registration in that. Then 2 days after that, I will be away for 3 weeks.
Okay.
All right, my wife and I are actually going to Europe and get away from things.
Oh, nice.
If we wait to this summer,
Everything's going to be overgrown.
Want to, but right now there is a potential that I might be away for most of the summer, working abroad on a site.
So we're talking in the next 3 weeks.
Or
October fall.
Everything will have died by then.
Right.
And it's
It's not something to really rush, so.
Yeah.
October? Something?
Either way, if you want to sneak it in between now and the end of April, we're probably going to do it. At least one pass through the mountain and see what we find. And then it may require others.
Well, okay, that's fine.
All right, so if you want to do it by April 19th to give me time for the conference,
Right.
because we'll be running down there back and forth.
Let's see what our county activities.
And then if you don't, then either we can do it during the summer when I'm available or in the fall.
In the fall. Okay. Great, that's some parameters. That's progress. Great.
the bramble bushes get pretty gnarly.
As do the yellow jackets.
Okay. Any more comments, Johanna, on things that you wanted to bring up for today from the questionnaire?
I think if having something in this building is a first step that everybody likes, then that'll help inform some of these choices. But I would like to see everybody's answers because I would like to chart them and get a better feel of what the group is thinking.
Do you have a copy of the survey?
Email it back to Henry.
I might have some copies here as well.
So don't take it, you don't have to take it too seriously, just take a look at it, let's see where we are all ending up,
Thank you very much.
and, it'll give us a little bit more direction.
It'll also be, I think, a great starting point, because everyone will be able to start gathering the materials and for
That's true,
that
too.
sort of exhibit, and then we can naturally get things out.
Okay, great. Stephanie, were you able to find out any information about the personal artifacts that people might have to like donate for us to display, or anything from Albany? Any news on that?
I think that I don't have any update on that, because I think people who have the artifacts, if anyone who has artifacts directly related, would be very, very reluctant to disclose that. But any artifacts in general that would be willing, I think that we need to be a little farther along to know
Okay.
that what are we doing with them, how are we going to safeguard them, agreements to borrow, agreements for donations, repository, things like that. So
On a much larger scale, I can add that we have in my office, the Orange County Collections Committee that meets 4 times a year. And, we've struggled for years to try to figure out how to care for all of the things that we own within the county, because every department has historical archives or objects, such. So we finally got money last budget to hire a consultant this year. So she's coming to meet with our office the first week of April. And she's gonna be putting together a report this year that gives us a much clearer picture of where our historical collections are within the county, how they're being cared for, what their legal status is, because we don't always know, how things came to us sometimes.
Yeah.
But that might help to clarify some of this as well. And then people who have objects might feel more comfortable. Once we have a report like that, it might make them feel more comfortable in loaning us things.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that'll be this year. That's the first week of April, I'm meeting with her for the
And
first time.
the thing is, a lot of collections are collected illegally.
Sure.
People go out on properties that they're not welcome to. And so I think a lot of people would likely, who have these personal collections that they've collected over the years from farmland or whatever have you, they would be reluctant to also disclose what they have necessarily and say, hey, I found this on a farm field I wasn't supposed to be on in 1982. They might be reluctant.
Unless
They
right, I
they
could see
would
that.
be legally reprimanded. Such.
Okay, that's fine. Understood. Okay, so the next thing, we go into the saga of the New York State DEC, just like Dr. Johnson said. So back in January, I went and took the time to go to DEC headquarters on South Butt Corners Road, Region 3 headquarters, and went to the window and asked to speak to whoever had replaced Paulina Duda, who was the inspector or monitor supervisor. I don't really know what her title was, but she was the one who was in charge of the DEC of oversight of Dutchess Tilcon. And so since she had taken the early retirement, I guess over a year ago now, they had still not replaced her. Again, DEC has its typical story of understaffed and in every department. And so that's why things take so long as well. I was able to be given a name by the nice lady at the reception window. She said his name was Ryan Leduc. He was taking over I shouldn't say, I should say more like filling in for Paulina in that position. I asked if I could speak to him or even wait for him that day. And she said, no, he's in a meeting. She gave me his phone number and name. And so I've called and left messages for him, I believe twice, and have not received any answer.
I think that's the one
or response. I expected when I said a member of the Orange County Legislature, maybe get a little more respect, but apparently not. So she gave me the form. My wife and I filled it out. We sent it in the middle of January, for the FOIL request to the FOIL email. I got a response back, the first week of February saying, thank you very much for your FOIL request. We will get back to you by March 9th. And I have emails for this to prove it. So I'm waiting and I'm waiting. I'm talking to Carrie about waiting till March for the FOIL request. And so on March 9th, I get a response from the FOIL department. Thank you for your request. The date has been adjusted to 4/16, April 16th. So it's like, oh, damn. Well, what else is new? So I've been waiting for 4/16 to come. And then last Thursday, surprise, an email comes with the FOIL request. So I call Carrie Ann immediately and say, we got something. But when I actually went in and read the specifics, I had to set up an account with the DEC. So I go to set up my account, I put in my email, and somehow there was some sort of discrepancy with the password. So it wouldn't let me in. I couldn't see what they had sent me. So I go, well, what else do I do now? Okay, let's change my password. So I go to change the password, and I've done this 3 times since. I go to change the password, and it says, sorry, email is pre-registered to somebody else. It's like, I just put it in. How can you say it's pre-registered to somebody else and so I can't use my own email? So I went through the procedure of sending the little note on the bottom, the person on the bottom in the password problem section of the DEC. I sent them an email requesting that they call me so that we can talk about getting my email logically to be able to be used by me and talking with them about getting a password set up. And that was on Friday. So I'm still waiting for the password department of the DEC now to get back to me so that I can provide the information that they were saying. So again, it just, when you just talk with computers, you can't talk to people, it can be a nightmare. So further information on the FOIL request to come, and I'll have Carrie Ann send it by mail and electronically when we are able to get it for everybody.
I'll let you know if I hear anything either, because I keep sending them the emails.
Yeah, yep. So, all right, so that will be further discussion at a future meeting. So that leads us to the update of the property subdivision, section 4. Travis?
Good afternoon.
Okay. So again, this is an update on the procedure for the RFP, which Mr. Golden, as our county attorney, had seen what was done previously to his coming back to county employee as our county attorney. And he said that it was kind of like just procedurally wrong the first time, and that we should do this subdivision that everybody has seen the maps for, and that had to go to the town of Goshen for approval. Travis?
Thank you. So we prepared the subdivision maps and the application to the planning board along with the short form EAF. That was all submitted January 19th to the town of Goshen Planning Board. On February 2nd, we attended a planning board meeting where we gave our initial presentation, and the planning board scheduled a public hearing, and they voted to declare a negative intent voted to declare intent to be lead agency under secret. Sorry. And
That's
then
okay, take your time.
on the 16th, we had our public hearing. We presented the 4-lot subdivision. The 4th lot is the lot that's created by basically a natural subdivision. It's on the southwesterly side of Quarry Road. And it contains the Valley View site. So we had lot 1, which was a Dutchess Quarry Caves, which was approximately 16.2 acres. Lot 2 was the 2 water towers, that was roughly 1.9 acres. And lot 3 being the area that I believe the county intended to sell, which is approximately 31 acres. And then the remainder was lot 4. There were several members of the public who attended who voiced concerns about the not so much about the subdivision, but more about potential expansion or operation of the quarry. We explained that we were there for this subdivision, and which was to be considered a bare subdivision. We were not proposing any disturbance, any physical disturbance to the site. We were just proposing to create these parcels so that potentially the county could sell off lot 3.
Question. I had never heard the term bare subdivision before.
So each lot, we demonstrated its use. So lot 1 was a municipal use to preserve the caves.
Mhm.
Lot 2 was also a municipal use, and it contained the water towers. Lot 4, again, a municipal use, and it has the county facilities that are on the southwestern side of Quarry Road. And then lot 3, we had to demonstrate that it could support some sort of a approvable use on that lot. So what we did is we indicated a single family residential dwelling on there, not to be approved, like somebody couldn't walk in and get a building permit to put a house on there, but just we demonstrated that it would support that use. So that was actually one of the things that was stated, was that any future development of that lot 3 would have to go before the Town of Goshen Planning Board for approval, unless it was to be for a municipal use, and demonstrated that it did not have to go back there.
Mr. Golden, did you want to add something? You can come to the table if you would like.
Just as a comment on your question as to bare subdivision, under New York law, they call 2 different types of subdivisions subdivision. So it doesn't really differentiate between the 2.
Okay.
So you can have a subdivision, which is very typical, where you come in, you subdivide, and you propose how you're going to develop that subdivision, either with houses or commercial properties or mixture or whatever. So that's called a subdivision, where you're actually creating these subdivided lots and you're getting approval for what you're putting on those lots. What I term a bare subdivision is to distinguish those kind of subdivisions where you're not proposing any development whatsoever, or all that you are doing is just putting lines on a map, an imaginary map, right? That for purposes of tax parcels. So all you're doing is saying, I just want my property divided in this way. I'm not proposing that we develop it in any way. So that's why this was a bare subdivision versus a typical type of subdivision where you're also proposing to get an approval as to the use.
Okay, well, thank you, because I've been around real estate for probably 40 years and had never heard that term before.
Well, it's
So,
a term that I've come up with to try to differentiate between the 2 types of subdivisions.
okay, nice, nice. Now, getting back to Travis, I did want to mention while you're on the subject, Mr. O'Donnell, I guess, was attending these meetings, and he had seen on that one piece, the house. Because he then sees me later on, he goes, hey, did you know on this map, there's a house on one of those lots? And can you just explain that when I asked you this same question, why that house is there? Because of, again, needing to show that it is a usable piece of property. You're just not moving lines around on the imaginary map, but it actually is, for legal concept, usable.
So we had to demonstrate that lot 3 could support a permitted use that was permitted in the town's zoning code. And we felt the easiest way was to just demonstrate with a single family residential home on there.
Mhm.
Seems that we didn't have a specific use necessarily in mind for it.
Mhm.
So that's just done before the planning board, because the planning board, every planning board, needs to know before they approve a subdivision that the way that they're subdividing the property can be used for something, because they don't want to go ahead and do something, say, to have a lot that only has steep slopes, and then you can't build on the steep slopes, and then it becomes a problem for tax purposes and elsewhere. So they require, all planning boards require that you show them that for every lot that you want subdivided, there, it can be used somehow. So as Travis said, we proposed a single family lot, a single family home on that lot to show, given the soils and everything else, that you actually could put a home there. But that's just for the planning board's review. When that plat is about to be filed, Travis will take off that home. So it's not going to be part of the filed map at all.
Okay, okay, good, because I know residents and neighbors probably saw that house there and had the same question as Mr. O'Donnell. And I know it was explained later in a letter by you that obviously, like you just said, there will be no chance of any structure on that property. It's just for procedural purposes is why that was put there. And I did explain that to Mr. O'Donnell, just for the record as well. You can continue.
Sure, thank you. At that public hearing, planning board assumed lead agency status, and they declared a negative declaration for the application in regard to seeker. Also, a draft resolution was prepared and read after the public hearing was closed. And the planning board elected to postpone voting on the approval of the resolution until at least the next meeting, because they had requested some documentation, which was the state historic preserve information and the National Register District boundary information, which we had provided, but they hadn't had a chance to review it at that point in time. So they'd asked, or they had decided not to vote on the resolution of approval until after the board had a chance to look at that. So we returned again on March 2nd, and the planning board voted to approve the subdivision.
Okay.
There was 4 specific conditions. The first one was that any future development in the lots would be subject to planning board approval unless it was for municipal use and demonstrated to be unnecessary. The plans need to be revised per the town engineer's comment letter, which we believe we've addressed all those.
Which were basically,
There was the one boundary line between the lot 2 and 3. We had to adjust by a foot or so to make sure that there was proper separation between the driveway and the side boundary line.
Okay.
There was also a discrepancy on some of the lot areas that were in the bulk table versus those listed on the individual lots. There was a couple of items that just had to be confirmed with the building inspector or the town attorney.
Okay.
So we've been back and forth with the town engineer on that. I think we're at a point where we've addressed those. They also, as we'd say before, they wanted us to submit the State Historic Preserve and National Register District boundary information, which we had prior to that. And the last one was we were required to identify the Lot 1 boundary with concrete monuments to serve as a visual reminder of the property line.
okay,
So our surveyors went out there and looked at the locations of these monuments. They're quite difficult to access. Some of the property corners are within a couple of feet of the vertical.
the cliff,
The cliffs, yes.
Okay.
So we've been in discussion with the town's engineer about what will suffice for that monumentation. I think we've reached an agreement on it.
Good.
And they will be out there over the next couple of weeks working on installing that monumentation. But if you've been out there, I'm sure you can see that it's very difficult to get
Oh, yeah.
equipment up there. And
I was surprised when you climbed up to that one corner of the fence, how close you were to looking over the edge. I was surprised at that.
So I think they'll be coordinating with Tilcon actually to access from the quarry side for some of the portions of the site. So,
Okay.
and then,
So what happens before the filing is that before you can file a subdivision, it has, among other things, it has to be signed off by the planning board chair or chairwoman. And in this case, their process is that the planning board chairperson will not go ahead and sign until they get a letter from the planning board attorney saying all the legal issues have been resolved,
Yes.
and a letter from the planning board engineer saying that all of the conditions that he wanted have been done.
Mhm.
So we expect after they go ahead and put the monuments in, town engineer will look at
Inspect,
that.
yeah.
and then the chairperson, well, in this case, it's Chairman Lee Burgess, will go ahead and sign off on it after getting those two letters from the attorney and the engineer.
So it could be a month or two, probably at the most, before this is given final approval?
Well, it's been given final approval before
Well,
a
but,
signature on so that we can file it in the county.
I think that's about the time frame we're looking at.
okay, that's good. And then once it's filed in the county, then we can go through the procedure of the public RFP. Yes, but we have to obviously wait until that's done. So another couple months, but at least we know now a timetable. That's good. Okay. Questions from anyone for either gentleman? Betsy, any questions? No? Okay. Okay, so just to wrap up for today, I would like to make a note that we had received a letter from Holly O'Hearn, 2 Summit View, Goshen, New York, 10924. Again, talking about many of the concerns that have been discussed previously at different meetings and public participations. I would also like to note at our last legislative session, interested neighbors, which I believe we probably have in our presence today, were speaking at public participation at the end of the meeting. And they brought up several things, several instances and issues with what we just discussed in the meeting with the planning boards of Goshen about the particular plans. It's really not usually done, but would either of you like to make a comment at this moment or stand up and introduce yourself?
Sure. I mean, I appreciate you allowing me to say a couple words. I'm a resident of Goshen since 2010. Had a great experience there and appreciate being able to speak at the last legislative meeting as well. I guess, some of our concerns, when Dutchess Quarry operated the caves, there was no issue essentially. In 2013, when Tilcon purchased it, it's a totally different experience now. And I'm not, some of our neighbors feel like the quarry shouldn't be there and it shouldn't exist. I have no issue with a quarry being there. It's the fact that they're in violation of certain town and DEC violent codes. We've called DEC a number of times to Helena and no response on a number of things, whether it's the asphalt plant that was installed and the smells related to that, or the dust that's on our back tables, like granular stone. That's a DEC issue and violation. The noise violation, the noise significantly exceeds what's permitted under the town code, but the town hasn't, held them accountable for that. We're working on that now. So it's been an extremely frustrating experience for us, which has affected our health. It's affected our well-being. It's affected the value of our investment in our community, in our home. The taxpayers in our development between Northgate, Southgate, that area, pay between $800 and $1 million a year in taxes. Tilcon pays about $70,000 a year in property taxes on 43 acres that they own currently. So when we, and many of the purchases that are made there are exempt from sales tax because they're for the municipality or they're for large projects that may have sales tax exemptions. So, from a economic impact, I don't see, Tilcon is a great economic contributor, to the community. I'm concerned about when we talk about artifacts and different things that are on the property. Certainly the 16 acres, it was 13 acres at one point. It was expanded to 16 acres, which I think is a great thing. I wonder about the 31 acres that they're currently mining on, and if there's artifacts on that property, and if there is, what can be done to preserve that. So again, I'm not against the quarry. Some of our neighbors are. It's just holding them accountable to DEC rules and regulations. It's holding them accountable to noise ordinances and violations of noise. And that's kind of where many of the people and our neighbors are, and I think the subdivision isn't a big deal. It's a subdivision. So I think the subdivision, somebody had got a notice of the subdivision and And that's kind of what's stirred this. I've been working with Quarry, trying to stay out of this, honestly, staying out of, going to the county, going to the town and, getting attorneys, because we, I met with Tilcon as far back as when they came in and said, there's noise issues, there's dust issues, and they promised to put blankets up to help the noise, which helped a tiny bit. And then they said that they would move the crushing machine into the pit, which would eliminate the noise. That was pre-COVID. That was like 2016, 17. I went to the town meeting once. Next day it was in the Chronicle. I don't want to be in the paper, quite honestly. I have other stuff going on. So, and now fast forward to now, and last fall I went back to meet with the Tilcon folks and said, hey, what's the status of moving the crusher? Well, with COVID, we don't have the money to do it. And so now it's like, I feel like it's never going to happen. So it's a very, very frustrating situation. I feel like I've been running around for years and years. And that's kind of where we are now. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I appreciate the opportunity to speak at the last legislative meeting. I apologize for going a little bit over. That was very rude, and I apologize for that. So again, thank you for your time.
No problem at all. I don't mind people from the audience speaking at my meetings. Can you just give your name and address for the record?
Yeah, it's Dave Mistretta, Mistretta, and it's 25 Northgate in Goshen.
Ma'am, would you like to say something?
Oh, no, I'm just a
Like that,
neighbor.
yeah.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
related to him. Marriage.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for coming, as I said. And I would also like to note, committee members did get a copy of Mrs. O'Hearn's letter. And as well, I got it yesterday from interoffice mail, our county attorney's response to Mrs. O'Hearn. Everyone has a copy of that as well. And if you would like a copy, I believe Carrie Ann would have extra copies that you could have the response as well. All right, anything else to bring up for today by anyone?
Folks, they want to.
Oh, yeah. Yes, well, I was gonna buy one first and then bring it to a meeting to have an announcement, but Yes, for our members, Dave has made a note here that the copy of the book that is in the plastic binder in this office, there are still copies available if anyone would like to purchase it. It's $13.95, and it's from Persimmon Press.
Yeah,
in
Mike
Massachusetts.
Bramley, who published that for them, said he has a limited number of copies available from the original book. So if anybody wants it, this is the time to get it.
And we use this address?
Yes,
Okay, I will order one, definitely. Great.
or you can email him directly.
But it was, I think it was great because, like I said, when you were here at one of the very first meetings and you had your book, I got the book from you, and it was really amazing to be going through it and walking the land and seeing the things that are pictured in his book right here in Goshen. So, all right. If nothing else to discuss, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.